like to welcome everybody to the policy committee meeting. Hello, Ed, by the way, first, before we get started that, I should have said that first, man, because you're like one of the important people on the committee here. Sorry about that. But sorry, turning something off. Everybody just listening to me. Sorry. I'm Barry Malphurs. I'm the policy committee chairman for DDSN, and this is one of regular monthly policy committee meetings. For those that don't realize what time it is, it's 10 o'clock instead of 3 o'clock. I know, don't get used to it. It won't be at 10 o'clock very often. But it is today because we had some special things happening. So for those that like it to be at 10 o'clock, enjoy it today. And for those that like it to be at 3 o'clock, it'll be set back next month. The next item on the agenda is the statement of announcement, which I would ask Ms. Lori to read for me if she would.
A meeting notice announcing the date, time, and place of the June 14th, 2022 Policy Committee meeting was distributed June 10th, 2022 to appropriate media and other groups or individuals who have requested notification. The announcement and agenda were posted at the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs Central Administrative Office and on the website. The public has been notified that accommodations such as interpreters, mobility assistance, or other assistance will be provided to individuals with disabilities and special needs if requested in advance.
Thank you, ma'am. The next item on the agenda is the invocation, which I will give, unless you would like to do it, Ed. Would you like to do it, or do you want me to?
Bow my head.
Go ahead.
Our Father in heaven, we come now to policy meeting on the South Carolina Department of Disabilities and Special Needs. We ask now that you invoke your invocation. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
The next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. If we don't hear any objection to the adoption of the agenda, I'm going to assume it's adopted within 3 seconds. Okay, the committee agenda is adopted. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the summary notes for the May 11th meeting, which is on tab 1, page 1 and 2 of the packets. And if I don't hear objection to that, we're going to move forward in 3 seconds. I don't have any corrections to that. Okay, we're moving on. The first item of new business is, and we're doing new business first today because there may be more to it than the old business. The first item under new business is 56704DD, which is approval of crisis prevention criteria and curriculum for the approval process. On page 3 and 5 of our packets. Is there any? I don't think I have any. Is there any corrections to that policy for anybody? I don't hear anything about, no objection. About 3 seconds, we're going to move to the next one. That one is approved as written. The next item on the agenda is 600-05DD, which relates to behavioral support and medications and prohibited practices. It's on page 6 to 21 of our packet under the same tab. And so now, is there any discussion regarding this particular policy? The only thing I was going to mention was, and it's kind of, it's not really big, but on page 12, it says healthcare decisions on behalf of a person. And I just wondered if we wanted to reference a policy that relates to, that we have that relates to people's ability to make healthcare decisions for people. You might want to say that you may want to read whatever policy it is that we have. There is one, and I just thought maybe one might want to reference it. There is the only thing I was going to ask.
So we have a policy, it's the consent policy, right, Colleen?
Right.
Consent is the policy that talks about healthcare. Yeah, we can, I mean, we can reference it if you would like.
I just think it'd be nice to reference it so they know to read that one too, if they're reading this one.
Barry, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I was just asking, would ask the staff for an explanation of all these things as we go through them. It can just be just a 2-sentence or 3-sentence. The restraint policies are something I've been interested in for a long time, so I want to especially get an insight of that. But if we could have staff just give us a really brief summary as we go through these, that would be helpful.
Okay, this one doesn't have to do, well, does it? Yeah. This one has to do with behavioral support plans. So you want to give us go ahead.
So yes, for the behavioral support plan, we did several revisions for this directive. The first few changes you're going to see is just moving the information to a definition section. And then we added some definitions to clarify words throughout the directive. Then more of the substantive changes, the first thing you're going to run into is under the policy section, which is our page 5.
Here, just use mine.
Sorry, we have different numbering on our documents. I do apologize for that.
All right, we'll fix it next
So
time.
on page 10, if you look under policy, we added several prohibited practices, and this was to clarify what would be inappropriate and against good practice. So you'll see things added such as restraints that obstruct the airway or impair breathing by putting pressure on the torso, physical holds that rely on pain inducement, just to add stronger language and to include different holds and prevent inappropriate actions on behalf of staff. The next.
David, that was one of the things you were primarily concerned about the last time we dealt with one of these type policies. Is that
Yeah,
right?
Are we on page
10,
page 10?
11.
10 and 11 of your packet. That's where we were mostly concerned about before, that area, and they put that in there to make it more clear, and which I think was nicely done.
What we did is we reviewed several different states that were similar to South Carolina and see what was, and Ann helped a lot with that, I will say, and just to see what was normal practice or what others were restricting. And we looked over to see what we could include in our policy as well that we believe would be good practice for South Carolina Department of Disability Special Needs. Are there any specific questions regarding the additions to prohibited practices on pages 10 and 11?
I don't have any unless David does. While you're looking at that, David, I will tell him one thing real quick. Shouldn't we spell out where it says on page 11, PRN? PRN, what is PRN?
So PRN means it's just an order that a nurse or a medical professional gives that allocates medication on an as-needed basis versus continuously or at certain dates and times. So
What does
PRN
PRN stand for?
On page 11 at the very top of the top
bullet that says as needed bracket PRN?
So pro rata.
Pro re nata is just, and it's also, I mean, it's just a term that's used for anything that's as needed, such as,
Oh, okay, all right, well, then I don't need to be spelled out, okay, all right. Go ahead, sorry, I don't know, I was going
okay, anything else with the?
anything else, David, on page 10 or 11, or anything else in this?
I blanked out again on what PRN stands for.
It just means as needed. That's why it says as needed, parentheses PRN. PRN is just a term that's used that.
Yeah,
also
what is
means
it,
as
what is
needed.
it, what is, okay, as needed, but what does PRN stand for?
Pro re
I mean,
nata.
what's the
Pro
P?
re nata. That's what it's
pro what?
pro re nata.
Like a Latin,
Yeah, it's just a Latin term to
PRORENATA.
mean as needed.
It's.
Yeah,
it means
where is,
as needed.
that's good. Now, where is pro re nata actually described? What page is that on?
Well,
As needed.
so pro
No.
re nata means
Okay, I see at the top it says as needed, PRN. I'm asking you where in the document is PRN, does it say pro re nata? Where is that?
it doesn't, that's why I was saying we might want to spell it out.
Is that what you were referring to?
That's what I was
Well,
referring
it's
to.
not, you have to imagine that somebody's trying to understand this, and it's not clear that the as needed, and then you say PRN, what does that have to do with the as needed? Well, it means as needed, but it's in Latin apparently, pro re nata. I don't know what language that is, if it's Latin or Greek.
medication allocated as needed, but if you want clarification, we can add that to the definition
Yeah,
section.
your PRN has to say the P stands for something, the R stands for something, the E stands for something. Now that altogether translates to as needed, but if somebody's trying to understand this, that they don't know if the as needed refers to PRN or as needed is, and then you've got in parentheses PRN is something that's in addition to the as needed. So you've got to say it somewhere, on page 10 or 11, what the PRN means in English.
Or where you want to put it.
Would it be acceptable to add it to the definition section towards the
Okay,
beginning?
what page is the definition section? Let me just read it.
Definition section is right up front. It's on pages 7 and 8. And
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, see where it says definitions right now on 7 and 8, David?
Yeah, I'm looking, behavioral
It's not
support
there, but we can
plans.
add it in there.
I mean, obviously, that's where she wants to add it, which I don't see any problem with that, I reckon. It just needs to be somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, just add it into the definition then.
Okay.
Yeah, as a separate definition. And just make it clear that it says what it said, what you just said, which is fine.
The next biggest changes you'll see are on page 14 and 15 as it's regarding behavior support plan restraint. And I think the important thing we were trying to do here is to not have restraint as a term by itself. We wanted to designate if it was a plan restraint, manual restraint, a mechanical restraint. So there's no gray area with what we're meaning. So we added those definitions to the particular restraints towards the beginning on 7-8, and then we made sure that if there's the word restraint, we're having planned or mechanical designating what type of restraint, just to add clarity.
This is on page 10 or 11.
This is on pages 14 and 15 regarding behavioral support
okay.
plan restraint. And if you're reading through it, and you'll just see that we made sure that if there's a term restraint, we have it designated. If it's planned, mechanical, chemical, we just have it clarified throughout that section where it was not before.
Yeah, that's right, where exactly. Very good.
Then the last big change, and there's small words here and there throughout the document, but the next section where it's the biggest changes would be emergency interventions. And most notably, what we did here is we took out the use of a mechanical restraint in an emergency intervention. And mechanical restraints are, ties, robes, anything that's not just your physical body holding someone. And then it has clarified reporting for the other two designated types of emergency restraint, which are the manual, meaning physical contact with the person and what's appropriate in those circumstances, as long as a chemical restraint, which would be a type of psychotropic medication that's used with prior approval to calm a person if other less intrusive interventions are not possible. And then it describes more in detail the reporting policy and what's expected as far as reporting and monitoring during these situations.
Okay, what was the other small revision I wanted to make to this? I can't find it right now. We just said we were gonna make it right before he started talking about that.
What you had mentioned was there was no reporting, but then
Well, I'm talking about referencing the other
Right,
policy.
you wanted to reference the consent
the
policy?
consent policy.
Yeah, it's up in the first,
On page 12.
on page 12.
Right, so let's reference, David or Ed, if y'all don't have an objection, we're gonna reference another policy on page 12. Where
Yeah.
it talks about healthcare decisions on behalf of, we just wanna say that, I don't know, something like you may wanna read this policy and list that policy in there.
I'll just put a reference and then the policy number.
You could do that, yeah, and say what the title is or whatever. That would be good. Anyway, David, you get that? I was just adding that policy in that we have that references healthcare decisions.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. If there's no, I don't have anything further on this document unless you do, David.
The only thing, I mean, it's fairly extensive, and I appreciate the staff spending lots of good time on it to make sure it's clear. You know, the tragedy that took place a year and a half ago, it was the result of somebody putting their knee onto a man's back, and every exhale, he couldn't inhale as much as he exhaled. And it was ostensibly for the purpose of getting him under control, but after the control was gained, they kept it up and he died as a result of that. So the question I've got, is there anything in this policy addition on restraints that would in any way allow something like that to take place? I've had a conversation with somebody who was recently retired, not with DDSN, but with another entity in South Carolina that had units of individuals, young people that tended to be out of control at times. But he declares to me that there's absolutely no condition under which that he ever had to cut off circulation of breathing or anything like that, because so many other things were available to somebody who had a little bit of physical training in Aikido or Judo or some of the other things that could put a person on the ground and at least hold them there till, that is, you never have to stop a person's or cut down a person's breathing. So that's what could kill a person. So I want to make sure that we deny that is in here, that ever that is a legitimate use of restraint. You never use something that conceivably could kill them. And air passage and air, the ability to breathe is tops on the list, really. I want to make sure there are no holes in here, and you know, without trying to digest every paragraph and every sentence is fairly lengthy. I didn't see anything in the definitions that I thought could fit that, but I'll let the staff, Barry, if you don't mind, answer that question. I don't want to come back to it a year from now or 2 years from now, and we're being sued because somebody got. It's just not being sued. I mean, the tragedy would be somebody was killed. But where a staffer uses a paragraph in what we're looking at as permission to cut off the breathing passage to gain temporary control of the situation, and it results in death. I mean, that's just unacceptable. So I just want staff to assure me that they've studied this well enough to confirm that nothing like that is allowable in the policy on restraints.
So Commissioner Thomas, I'm going to, on page 18, I just want to highlight some of the new language that has been added on emergency interventions, second full para under Roman 3. When a manual restraint is implemented during an emergency intervention, the manual restraint must only be applied until the person is calm and no longer dangerous. And it's the second sentence that I want to emphasize. While the manual restraint is applied, the person's response to its application must be continually monitored. So we believe that that language is responsive to your concern, which is what has not occurred in some of those tragic incidents.
And then also, Commissioner, I would like to highlight some additional language which was placed under prohibited practices on page 10. If you look, we changed to saying any prone restraint is prohibited, not just prone basket hold restraint. And then you'll see right below that, I'll say restraints that obstruct the airway or impair breathing by putting pressure on the torso. So those were added to more directly respond to those type of concerns regarding airway. But Dr. Fry is also highlighting something that we were responding to in the emergency restraint, where they have to be continually monitored during application of any type of restraint and their body's response to that restraint.
I'm looking for something that says no restraint whatsoever may be used by a DDSN employee that cuts off the ability to breathe.
Bullet 8 on page 10 expressly prohibits restraints that obstruct the airway or impair breathing by putting pressure on the torso.
Well, what about a choke? I saw that torso thing, which kind of fits, but also anything that's choking. Y'all ever watch any of that MMA stuff? They got what's called the rear naked choke. Have you ever heard that? That's a throat. That's a throat. You're at back of them, and your hands go around the throat. Not hands, but it could be an elbow kind of choke or whatever. So it's not just pressure on the torso that keeps them from breathing. It could also be any kind of action that limits the breathing.
So we can amend bullet 8, right?
We can amend bullet 8.
We'll just take off. We'll end at the word breathing in bullet 8. So that it will read restraints that obstruct the airway or impair breathing.
That's it.
That's fine.
I think you got it by just what you said.
Okay, very good.
Now, does that carry over, Barry? Would that carry over that where it says policy? Does that carry over to emergency interventions?
Yes, sir, it would. So those are prohibited practices regardless. And then what's listed emergency intervention would not supersede or prevent those prohibited practices from not being upheld.
I mean, if you want a sentence in there that says that, you could, I guess, but I mean, this would include emergency practices or whatever.
We could reference policy prohibited practices pursuant to policies that we can reference back to the prohibited practices in the emergency intervention section.
There you go. That's why I love that. That's right. Did you get that, David?
Yeah, I heard it. That's it. Yeah. Well, you got to say it because somebody who's being trained might think that emergency interventions are not a part of the proceedings and extraordinary things can be done, like choking somebody. When anybody who's had any training in physical combat, wrestling or Aikido or Judo knows that there are other ways to deal with this. The gentleman that I was speaking to happened to have a black belt in karate, but of course we don't expect our employees to be highly trained like that. But at the same time, if you've gotten a minimal amount of training, sometimes all the training you get is choking techniques. Well, there are other ways that if somebody is out of control, to take them to the ground and stop them, and restrain, keeping the arms from flailing without putting them to sleep, which is just seconds away from death. If it's cutting off the airway some kind of way, like that old rear naked choke that I brought up a minute ago. So if you can include the prohibited things from taking place, I think that would be a wonderful addition, and would therefore show somebody who's being trained, you even in an emergency situation, you got to find out a different way to get this guy under control, rather than something that he learned 6 months earlier in jiu-jitsu class off campus.
Right. I think we got it now then. So, all right. So then I think that does it for this policy. There's no further additions to it. Which we'll see, I guess, before we're going to try to prove this to the commission. We need to see these changes before the commission.
Well, it needs to go out for public comment. So it's going to go out
Oh,
for
that's
tentative
right.
public comment. It won't go to the commission until the July.
Okay, well, if there's, in this particular policy, if there's anything added from public comment, we'd like to know what it is. Maybe bring it back to the commission, we'll see. To the committee, we'll see. Because we're, obviously we're deeply concerned about this one. So, okay, this one's gonna go out. With those changes, David, this one's gonna go out, and those listening, this is gonna go out to public comment for 10 days. And then we'll evaluate the situation from there. And likely come back.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you all. Just likely come back to the full commission for approval, we'll see. The next item on the agenda is, but by the way, I do want to say that's a much better document than we had a year ago or 2 years ago, so thank you very much for that. And then I think a lot of documents around here are better than they were 2 years ago or 3 years ago or 4 years ago, but anyway, but that's one of them. So, and that's thanks to this committee for that, and to the staff who've been cooperative with our committee very well. But anyway, the next item on the agenda is the 130DD, which is
It is.
Yeah. From 20, which is page 22 to 34 in the packet. And it is eligibility determination. And I had some concerns about this, which have been addressed. And so I don't think I have anything else other than what was addressed outside of here. And there's really no, we didn't decide to make any change from what I had discussed. So I think that's all I had on it. Just so you know, David, the eligibility in here is defined primarily by section 442390 in the Code of Laws. So I didn't realize that till this morning, but I was glad to see that. And so if we don't have if there's no other discussion about this policy, I'm going to give it 3 seconds and move on. Okay, that one's approved as written. The next item on the agenda relates to research involving DDSN resources. That policy is being asked to be made obsolete due to due to some changes that we have made. And so that policy will be made obsolete 53509DD. If I don't hear any objection about making that one obsolete, do we need to discuss anything? Making policies obsolete are always nice as long as they're covered in other places. And as things change, particularly through fee for service and things of that nature. So that policy is now made obsolete. Next item on the agenda is the appeal and reconsideration of decisions, which is 53511DD. I don't remember if I had any, I'm looking now to see if I had any concerns about this, but I don't think so. Other than what's written here, I think they did a good job again. It's becoming less and less unusual, which is nice. I like what it says on page 42, but so I don't have anything else to add to this one. If anybody else does, let me know now, or I'm going to give it 3 seconds and we're going to approve this one. Hearing nothing, we move to the next item on the agenda, which is the old business section of our agenda, which is clarification and licensing for day program services. Sorry, I'm looking to see if I have anything. I don't think I do on this one either. I do think the definitions on page 49 should be put in some other places for us, because I think it would be helpful whenever we were discussing supervised living programs and all those sorts of things, that we would use these definitions in any place where those definitions needed to be, because I hadn't actually seen those definitions in a document until we saw this one, and they're rather well done definitions of what CH2s are and what CH1s are and all that. So when somebody asks that, what those things mean, we should be able to reference this particular document because it's a good definition. Or if new commissioners need to know what those are, this is an excellent place to give them a definition from.
Sure.
So that would be nice to be made a note to be put in their information packets. I'd have liked to have seen that whenever I started here 2.5 years ago. Almost 3 years ago now. Anyway, is there any other, if there's nothing else on this document, because I don't have anything on this one either. There's nothing on this document. In 3 seconds, I'm going to move to the next one. Okay. I'm moving to the next one. The next item on the agenda is missing property reporting, which is
What tab are you on? Are you still on
I'm sorry, I'm in the old business tab.
tab 3? Is it tab 3?
Contract compliance.
Oh, sorry, I skipped one, David. My fault, man. 10403DD we need to do next. Gotta find it here.
She's on.
It's on page 89. Starts on page 89. How about that?
Yeah, we're all skipping it.
No.
Sorry.
B.
Tab 3, page 82.
It's tab 3, page 82 is the next one we're doing, David.
B.
It's, I skipped one. We got to do contract compliance reviews.
Well, Did we do A under old business, tab 3? Did we do A?
Yes.
Certification and licensure? Did we do that as part of?
Yes.
Yeah, we just did that one. I said that, that's where I was talking about the definition.
Okay.
Well
So
done. And then we
okay,
needed other places.
we're now on tab 3B,
Right.
page
Which is-
82 through 93.
That's right. Which is
Okay, thank
quality
you.
compliance and quality assurance reviews. It was. If y'all remember, last month, the primary concern I had about. Go ahead, David, sorry.
Well, I was just asking if on these, but same things before, if I could just get a 2-sentence or a 3-sentence explanation of what B is from staff.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for B, the directive related to the contract compliance reviews, we have revised the directive to reflect current policy as required by CMS and the Department of Health and Human Services related to our waiver performance measures. We have increased the threshold for 12-month reviews, the dividing line between 12-month and 18-month reviews. We have revised that threshold to be 86% instead of 75%. And that is consistent.
Okay. That's the compliance part, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Is that the main change, the percentage of compliance?
That is the main change. There was an addition near the end of the directive. There's some information that has been added regarding post-payment claims reviews. There was some discussion at the last meeting about sanctions or the potential for sanctions. And I know at that time, we had briefly addressed post-payment claims review as a requirement of CMS and the Department of Health and Human Services. So there has been additional text added to this directive to explain that process.
Okay. Okay, that's fine.
The only thing I was going to say about this is I don't see any reason why we shouldn't. This is not suggesting we should not approve it now, but I'm not sure this shouldn't be revisited once we consider once we try to figure out. Obviously, I brought up an idea last month, but I'm sure there's probably other ideas on what we can do regarding. There should be other ideas what we can do regarding sanctions, because to me, just giving somebody another review quicker, which is a good thing to do, is not enough. There should be, if you don't reach these numbers that we need you to reach for these percentages, since we're talking about people with disabilities, this is the people that we serve. We're talking about not numbers, not money. This is the people we serve. And so if you don't reach that 85 figure that we need you to reach, then we need to reevaluate over the next 6 months to see what other sanctions we can put in here. Because maybe we can come back to this at the end of the year and improve it as it is now and go from there. But the only thing you have right now is you have to do more. We come back and see you more often. That's the only thing that happens to you. Seems to me. And there should be more than that happen to you, whether it be fines, whether it be something that happens to you because you did not reach what we need you to reach. Because there's just nothing more important to me than reaching these percentages. And I'm glad the percentage was increased. I'm thankful the percentage was increased. That's a wonderful addition, but there just needs to be something else. It seems to me. But with that being said, we can ask that we revisit this at the end of the year and see if there was anything we could come up with. Like maybe at the December or November policy committee meeting. But we'll approve it as it is right now and approve it at the, as it is right now at the commission meeting. So that we don't have any further delay. There's no reason to delay. It's a better document than it was. It's just not as thorough, I mean, not as good as it should be to me. But I don't have any ideas at this moment as to what we should add. Or that I'm going to get into anyway. So I'll ask that we approve this one as written. If I don't have an objection, based upon what I just said, I would ask that we revisit this in November or December. So if you would make a note of that, I'd appreciate it. And we'll approve it as is. If there's no other objection, this will be approved in 3 seconds. Moving forward, the next item on the agenda is compliance reviews for non-intermediate care facilities. And
Last one we just did.
No, we're going to see now.
I'm sorry. Sorry, we just did, I'm sorry, I just did that. The next item on the agenda is the missing property reporting, correct?
Correct.
Right. We've obviously changed this to say the $100, which I talked about last month, my concerns for that. I would just ask that because, I'm not asking that we change this policy, I'm just asking that because of this policy, that whoever is in charge of P cards and things that relate to that would revisit that policy to make sure that there's nothing that in there that could cause people to give us dilemmas on this $100 that, because it seems to me that you technically could say the property belonged to you and you never have to pay it back. As long as it was less than $100. And so we need to revisit the P card policy and make sure that there's something in there that would prevent that. Because I'm told there is, but I don't know what it is. And nobody told me what it was either. So I would ask that we would revisit that and make a report in the next month or two to the committee about that. Okay, then, so with that, we will, if nobody else has an objection, we will, based on what I just said, we will revisit that P card policy in a couple of months and or at least give us a report on it. Maybe there's nothing needs to be done. I don't know. But I just want us to relook at that and make sure. So based upon that, if there's no objection, we'll approve the missing, because I don't have anything else, we'll approve the missing property reporting policy in 3 seconds if I hear nothing else. Okay, that one's approved. The next item on the agenda relates to the Human Rights Committee, which is 53502DD. You want a summary of this one, David?
Yeah, just 2 sentences.
Okay, go ahead and give us a summary of this one.
I don't think there was a lot of changes to it. You guys reviewed this one last month and it went out for public comment. We didn't have any comments from public comment, so we didn't make any changes.
What does it do?
It outlines the role of the Human Rights Committee at DDSN and at the provider networks. And it's basically to safeguard all of the programs and the people who are receiving services.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
David, the only thing we changed on this one, if you remember last month, was we made it another term that people could serve, so we didn't limit their term so much. And on this policy, we made it, they can serve 2 terms instead of 1. If I'm not mistaken, is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
It's changed in here now, on page, whatever page it is. What we decide, I've already seen it.
109.
Yeah, 109, thank you. It says that they can serve 2 terms instead of 1 additional term after their first term. Since you or I, either one like term limits, and I understand why too much. So, because of experience and all that, which we've talked about. So we made sure that was changed, and that's pretty much all that we ended up doing last month on this one. And just like she just said, from the public comment, there was nothing else. So we went on forward with this one to approve it like it is. And so if there is no objection, we will approve this one as it is now, the Human Rights Committee one. I mean, the Human Rights Committee one, it's actually public, it's actually printed twice in my document, that's fine. So if there's no further objection to that, we're going to approve that one in 3 seconds. Okay, there's no further objection to that one. That one's approved. The last item on the agenda is the employee health requirements. And as far as I know, what we decided to do here was drop the sentence that Commissioner Rollison was concerned about. And then that makes this one fixed, if I'm not mistaken. All right. Okay. I don't know where that sentence was now, but.
That was under number 1, under replacement physical exam.
On page 120.
Page 120.
Yeah, it was under page 1 on page 1, yeah, 120, yeah. So anyway, we dropped that, and I will say that if that becomes a problem, we need to readdress this issue.
So we dropped it from the directive because the directive governs every regional center employee, but there could still be a circumstance where a specific job requires it. And if that circumstance arises, we would just add that to the job posting. It would become a requirement for the job. So we took it out of the directive so that it doesn't exclude every regional center employee, anybody who can't lift 20 pounds, because there may be jobs at the regional center that wouldn't require it. So that's what we did with it.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think.
You just disqualified me because I don't live 5 pounds.
David, we're talking in here. I don't know if you can hear us good. Did you get all that?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, I just want to make sure you got it. Because that's the hard part about being where you are and the nice part about being where I am right now. Being here is you can hear properly. The only good thing about me having to come this morning. One of the good things. Okay, the next, well, I got to give it 3 seconds, and then we're going to approve this one as written with that sentence deleted. And like she said, if we have an issue with this, we'll put it in the job requirement whenever somebody's actually hired. Intelligent way to do it, it seems to me. So I hear nothing about that one, so I'm going to move forward to the final item on our agenda, which is Lori Manus is to present our updated status update on directives and they're referred to staff. And I wouldn't be in such a hurry, except that David could come off of us because of the storm that's brewing out here very readily. David, I don't know if you know where you are, but there's a storm coming here. I mean, there's a storm here now. So, as hot as it is, I'm not surprised. For those that aren't from here, that's what happens in our area. So anyway, go ahead, Lori.
So we have two directives that are currently being worked on by staff. 212DD, which is management of funds for individuals participating in community residential programs. Our plan is to try to get that posted and have it ready for the July commission meeting. The telephone policy is an internal directive that won't need to go out for public comment. It will be presented to the commission for approval and signing at the July meeting. At the June meeting, sorry, this month.
With the change.
We are gonna make one change to it. For those of you that have it in your packet, it's the last sentence to the first paragraph that says employees who violate the provisions of this policy will be subject to disciplinary action in accordance with the department's progressive discipline policy. It used to say, and may be required to reimburse the department for actual charges, so that may was changed to will.
So we will be required to reimburse if you violate the policy. Good. Anyway, keep that in mind when you're, for the, make sure that's on my sheet.
Okay.
Commission meeting, so I can bring that up. Okay, that relates to the telephone policy, which is already in your packet, David and Ed, and the rest of the commission too. So, but I'll bring that up at the meeting, which we are privileged to have in Spartanburg this go around, which will be in the next couple of days. On Thursday, actually, 15th. So, if there's nothing further, that was what I said that for. I just wanted to reiterate that we're having that our main commission meeting will be in Spartanburg. I think everybody has the details on that. If you don't, you can certainly get it from us here. And I'm assuming that we'll have it on our Facebook page and things of that nature. Is that correct? I think our person that does that is in here.
Yes, it's been announced.
Okay. It's been announced on our Facebook page and other places we can announce it, right? Okay. All right. We've pretty much announced it wherever we can announce it. If anybody wants to know about that, we will be there. And I think the entire commission will. As far as I know, the entire commission will be there. I know that we're looking forward to seeing David there. He will be there, we think, as opposed to on the computer that we have him on now, which we're also thankful to have. And then, so with nothing further, I'm going to say that our next meeting is July 12th, and that it'll be at 3 p.m. as usual, unless something changes. But as far as we know, it'll be 3 p.m. And as far as we know, it'll be July 12th. It obviously could change. I doubt it. We try very hard not to, for those that are watching, but just keep watching your email like you always do, those that are so interested in what we do here. So it'll obviously be posted as it normally is. Any other? Good grief, with all of those policies, we did a good job to be out of here in 58 minutes. So if there's no objection, I think we did. So kudos to David and to Ed for being here and helping us out here today, and to the committee for all the work we do with these things, and to the staff as well. And I should have welcomed Ms. Fry to our meeting whenever she came in, but I did not, so I apologize for that. But most of you know she's been here most of the time, and we're always thankful to have her. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
I'll second, and we're adjourned.